Hello, everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie stream. My name is Kent Trammell, and we've got a guest with us today, Tom Wright, who is an industry veteran. He's got a huge work history. Let me pause my stream real quick. Oh, it's on YouTube. There we go. All right, so it's working. That's good. Good to know. Tom is with us today. He huge work history. He's a Blender user and got associated with CG Cookie recently. So I was excited to get him on and talk about his experience. And so just a little bit about him is he worked in feature film. He's worked at several game studios, including latest is Epic. That's where he's at currently, and he is a lighter technical artist. If you if you want to, I didn't post the links to his ArtStation, I don't think. Oh yeah, I did. Check out the portfolio on his personal website, things like that. He's a very legit artist, and I'm probably embarrassing him, bragging about him, but that's who he is, and I'm super excited to have him on the stream today. So, Tom, thanks for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Awesome. So just to get started, maybe can you tell us about exactly what you do now, what your current profession in the industry is?
So currently I work for Epic Games. I did the opposite of what most people do. I went from a full-time employee to a contract employee because I wanted a little bit more freedom, and I wanted to move back up to the mountains. They're down in the what's called the Piedmont in North Carolina, this flatter, hot area, what I call it. Yeah. And I came back more to be with my family and be closer to my parents and whatnot. So I wanted to come back to the mountains, right. And I was expecting them to totally be like, goodbye, get out of here. But they kept me on as a contractor, and I still do the same thing, which is I make their promotional images. It's hard to explain. So they have a free MOBA that's going on called Paragon. And then their other product is Fortnite, which just released Fortnite Battle Royale, which has become really popular. And they do, they're trying to figure out this new way of selling video games that's not going to be the same box kind of thing that we normally see. And part of that is just building a library of promotional imagery. So each hero that comes out for Paragon, it needs its own image, and that we'll do a teaser image like this is coming. What do you think it is? Kind of thing, and then we'll do the big image where they're looking like a superhero, or I don't know. It's right. You can probably find
So I'm actually on your ArtStation right now. I'm looking at this Drongo marketing image. Is that an example?
Yeah.
Okay.
So all that stuff, because I just joined ArtStation.
Okay.
Since I went to Epic, because somebody turned around and said, "Hey, you should be on ArtStation and get this stuff." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." So I just started throwing the stuff up, the ones that I like anyway.
Yeah.
ArtStation, and that's basically what I do. That's for Paragon, and then I do kind of the same thing for. I do the same thing for Fortnite. I actually I lit the cover of the Fortnite, the box, Fortnite, the main image with the guy standing on the box and the zombies reaching up for him. Now, mind you, 10 people worked on that together. So we had Mark Beam was painting it, and there was other guys, fixing all the poses, and then I did all the lighting, and then we put it together and it made this ended up being this giant image, so we could render it poster giant size. But it was rendered in the engine. Everything I do is in engine, in the Unreal Engine. So it's super impressive coming from, other engines and coming from film and stuff to be able to grab a light and move it across your scene and see it real time. And I'm talking real time, not like the preview stuff we used to have in film.
Right.
Pure instant real time.
Holy smokes.
Amazing. And then basically what you see is a screenshot. So they have the high-res screenshot tool. It's available to anyone. You can drop down and just say, take a screenshot and take it at, I usually do a 2 times sample. So take the screenshot 2 times the screen resolution.
Right.
And that helps with some of the anti-aliasing.
Okay.
But that's all that is, just a screenshot from right out of the game engine.
That's incredible.
It is. It's an amazing piece of technology. That software, that Unreal Engine is. I've worked there for a year and a half, and I still go in there, and every once in a while I realize what I'm doing. Compared to what I was doing 10 years ago, it's just my gosh, this has gone So far, it's ridiculous.
Man, okay, soon we'll definitely talk about that 10 years ago. But what do you get like now? I'm looking at another image of the Wraith where he's got the gun kind of slinged over his shoulders.
Yeah.
And so what do you get in terms of assets that you then turn into this final marketing image?
So I get the character, which, they'll have the character, they'll have him rigged, and then I get him like in a T stance.
Okay.
And then I have to come up with like a pose, a background, and I don't do this by myself. I work with an art director, their art lead, and their studio art director.
Okay.
And even what's great is I have access to guys in animation, like the lead animator guy. I can throw a pose over to him and go, hey, what do you think about this? And it's cool because I'm really a lighter by trade.
Okay.
So, and I started my career as an animator, but I would never say like, oh yeah, I'm a top level animator kind of guy. I'm a pretty good animator, but it's cool to see these super top level guys, and you can send a pose over to them and them say something like, hey, you got a tangent, maybe his gun and his arm are too parallel or something. And those are things that those guys will see that I won't.
Wow.
And it's cool to kind of learn those, that level of detail
Right.
from different people. Like even because I'll have to go in and fix the pose, which brings us to Blender really is I have to go in and sculpt some things out that don't work because it's a game rig, right?
Okay.
The stuff I'm rendering is also the other crazy thing that those characters are the LOD0, which is the highest resolution version of them, but they are the game characters. That is what if you stop Paragon and just grab your camera and push it up in to that dude, you're seeing the exact character that I rendered in the promotional shot. It's not like I get something special.
Because it looks like that. It does kind of, you question like how real time is this when you see the quality of the image?
Yeah, well, I mean, it lags a bit because I'm using I'll use these area lights that'll have like 100 lights on them and they're all shadow casting. That's what makes it lag.
Gotcha.
The fact the character doesn't, like the character and all that. And when I say lag, I'm saying, I might drop below 30 frames a second every other image, which is kind of incredible when you think about it.
Unbelievable.
Half these things are running, because I got a pretty good graphics card so that they can run. Some of those images will run at 60 frames a second while I'm freaking lighting it.
Right. Yeah. That's unbelievable, dude.
Amazing. It's amazing.
So going back to, you mentioned how it's evolved over the last 10 years. Maybe we can start with your history. Real quick, I want to tell people, so this is your chance to ask questions. Please post in the chat. If you're on YouTube, we're still experimenting by simulcasting over there. You'll see the chat is disabled, but if you look in the description of the video, there's a link back to the CG Cookie page where the live event is also being hosted, and there the chat is live there. So this is your chance to ask him questions, and I'll pass that on to him. So yeah, please do that. But so Tom, if you can tell me, you mentioned 10 years ago, how has your career evolved, and alongside that, technology, how did you let's start with how did you get into computer graphics?
Oh man. So after college, I went to school. There was no CG in college, or there was, but they were the super expensive. You had to make a serious investment in that. You did. You went to a big school that was, and I was too scared. It was, to come out with that kind of debt versus just going to a state school and getting a regular degree. And it was never any where you would work in 1992 or whatever wasn't very clear. So I graduated with a completely different degree and had a completely different career at a time. And I was working, so I was a police officer. It's hard to believe. It's like whole different life back then. So I got out of college with a criminal justice degree. And I did this because my dad and my grandfather were police officers. I come from a family of cops. And when I'm I don't know what to do with my life, my dad's go down to the police department and get a job, right? So I'm okay, I don't know what to do. Okay. So I go down and get a job at the damn police department. And I was working security on this film called My Fellow Americans. This is how old I am. It was with Jack Lemmon and James Garner. And got to meet the guys and hang out with them and stuff. That was awesome. And but the more I started talking about, like, I knew a lot about filmmaking, and the art director actually was like, how do you know all this stuff? Right. And I'm like, well, I'm just a big fan. And then I was telling him, I do a lot of work on my computer. Back in the day, I had an Amiga computer, right? I did CG on my Amiga computer. And that really perked his interest. He was like, well, can I see some of your stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I guess. I'll like print it out or whatever. But he was saying, and this is before like CG was big at all, and it was not non-existent in film and barely in television, I think. And he kept saying, dude, this is the future of visual effects. You really should explore this as a career. And it's what planted the seed.
Right.
And because my brother was in Orlando, and we had started a business there after I decided didn't want to be a police officer, which wasn't very long, a few years. We had started a business, and again, that seed kind of grew, and I found out that the production supervisor of Foundation Imaging had just moved to Orlando and started a school. Right. And that was Dave's school, and me and him became friends. I started doing his work as a business owner. I started doing his printing and that kind of stuff. And I told him I wanted to go to a school really bad. and we ended up negotiating like a deal for me to get to go to his school. And hell, I wasn't there 6 or 8 months before he ended up hiring me to do production, because one of the funny things about going to school later like that is that it kind of shows you that it's more proof that you knew so much to begin with.
Yeah.
So I had a jump start, such a big jump start.
Wow.
But he taught me because I was using Animation Master back then. If you remember that software, Animation Master, it was like the super cheap, like CG stuff. And so he taught me Lightweight, which was kind of the industry standard at the time.
Yeah.
And I started doing commercials for him and Mark Simon, that Simon Animation. He's the guy that does, if you look at the books of expressions, like animation expressions, it has all the faces. That's the dude, Mark Simon.
Oh, my word.
So I worked for him for a while doing commercials.
So the school was also doing production on the side?
It was, yeah.
Okay.
Because I don't even know if he was making money doing the school. He was.
Gotcha.
He was just hustling back then. He was doing commercials and whatever he could. So yeah, I did commercials for him.
Okay.
Everything from like shaving commercials to like all kinds of weird stuff. But
and you had only been there a few months when you started doing that work for him?
Yeah, probably like 6 months maybe.
So you must be a pretty quick learner then.
I think it was more that I knew a lot already. It's like one of those things where it was a hobby for me for like 10 years.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, I was like, I'm finally going to learn it. And I was like, no, I know this stuff. I know a lot of this stuff already.
Right. And
they were more like taught me how to do it in a production fashion, like how to do it properly, I guess,
right.
with a team of people. And that was the most important lesson I learned from them.
Gotcha. Okay.
And it was a pretty good school. I like it. It was definitely less academic, more sit down and do it.
Yeah, real world. Yeah, gotcha.
Real world stuff, which was really useful.
Wow. So then when did you leave Dave's school to get another job?
It was about probably 2001-ish. I went with another guy up to Utah to work for Animax Films.
Okay.
We worked on this weird football thing. I don't even know. It was a pilot, really.
Okay.
Crazy animation. And from there, I went to Minnesota and worked for a little studio there that worked on a PBS show. That's when I got into lighting, because I was an animator before that.
Okay.
I was an animator on those commercials and Animax Films, and then I went to Minnesota as an animator.
Okay.
But I was helping them, again, I'm a generalist, so I'd model and everything else.
Yeah.
I was helping the modeling team catch up with their models, and the guys were kind of saying, hey, your stuff looks pretty good. And I was trying to explain to them, I'm not any better modeler than the guy next to me. He's probably 10 times better. But what I'm doing is I'm presenting them to you. I'm lighting them pretty.
Right.
And then they were kind of like, hey, can you do a whole like set or several shots like that? I'm like, yeah, I can try. And so I sat down, I started lighting. That show was called Ought to Be Good.
Okay.
I was lighting their sets, and I was using at the time Jimmy Neutron had just come out the film.
Mm-hmm.
I liked their color schemes, and I was using their color schemes to light these
Nice.
ought to be good sets.
Yeah, yeah.
Which ironically got me a job for DNA there in Texas, working on Jimmy Neutron.
Right.
Again, just kind of dumb luck ish, like just strange luck, I guess you'd say. And I also found that the lighting as a career was much more sought after. Okay. So it was
to like modeling or something.
Right, because there's so many people that know how to model and so many people that want to be animators as a career. And I would go to SIGGRAPH back then. SIGGRAPH was kind of where you went to get the jobs. And you'd look at like Disney was always that job I wanted. And I would look at the people waiting, to turn in their reels at Disney. And the animation line would go like, out of that room down the hallway. It'd be a ton of people wanting to be animators. And then there would be a guy, standing there going, "Hey, we need lighters. Does anybody know how to light?" And I'm just like, "Whoa, this is, so, and worse than that, so that it would be animation would go down the hall. Lighting would be like maybe 2-3 guys in a line. And then there's a guy, the one they really were killing for was like guys that wrote shaders. Whatever, their BSDF.
Yeah. Okay.
Their Disney shaders. I mean, that guy would literally be going, please, someone come work for us. I mean, almost literally, because there's like those. If you take your career and look at it and think, well, there's a ton of competition. If you're absolutely like hell bent on being an animator, then absolutely do it. I think it's doable.
Right.
But if you're like, I just want to be involved. That's kind of how I was. I just wanted to be part of like these big productions. Definitely. And I started looking and thinking, man, I could do a lot. I don't think I can write shaders because I'm not that technical, but lighting, I think I can do this,
Right.
So
that's you got the job at DNA by being at SIGGRAPH and making
I got the job at DNA, like a lot of my jobs, really through another person that was saying, hey, we need someone, and, they liked your stuff.
Yeah.
And so then I officially like submitted. I think I was turned down the first time, like flat turned down.
Okay.
I was like those guys back in the day that I could fill a wall with like rejection letters. It became such I would submit again, submit the same damn reel sometimes. It just depends on how desperate people are.
Yeah.
And who looks at it. Maybe they just trashed it instantly because they had plenty of experienced people. Here I was, with a year of experience or something.
Right. So one thing about DNA I wanted to mention is that's what is one of the things that connects Tom and I, because when DNA closed, a lot of their people went to Real Effects, which is the biggest like studio job that I ever had. So we worked with similar people. And
that's a pretty big studio job. Don't kid yourself. That's a big studio. Like you're like Real Effects, this little Real Effects. Like, no, they make huge feature films. And the people that worked there because they didn't want to go to Pixar. I'm telling you, that crew was super high end. So
they did have some incredible artists. You're absolutely right about that. But I wanted to ask you, like, do you see the industry because you're talking a lot about networking, and when I find out like someone like you worked, knew people from DNA that I knew, it kind of reminds me of this like high school feel where where the industry is kind of like, of people, like a surprising amount of people. It's kind of small in that sense.
It is.
Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not, I think that intimidates new people.
Okay.
But it's only small. I mean, it's small in the sense that we are the elite group that are just really into this and want to do it enough to, travel around the damn country and get these jobs and put up with the stuff we got to put up with or whatever. But yes, it's a tiny industry. Like the strangest thing is when Disney. So I worked for Disney for a few years, and I was supposed to like retire at Disney. I was hired as a staff person. I was union.
Yeah.
People were telling me, "Oh yeah, you'll be here for the rest of your life. You'll retire." From guys that had been there for like 20 years.
Right.
And I'm like, great. That's this is where I wanted to be. And like 2.5 years later, they laid off everyone in the studio. They bought Pixar. And at the time, we're thinking, oh yeah, that's a smart purchase. Thinking that Disney will take over Pixar, and it really was the other way around. Pixar took over Disney.
So you were there when the purchase happened?
Yeah, I was there.
Okay.
It happened right in the middle of, I was probably there maybe a year and a half or so. and then they announced that, hey, we're the deal is done. We bought Pixar, which at the time we didn't think much of it. We were just like, oh, that's cool. Those are, that's a really talented studio. That was a good purchase. Right. Not thinking that it would affect us as a studio that much. But then they said, okay, I don't even think Ed Catmull took over right away. I think John Lasseter came in and did, he would talk to us like in small groups and be like, things are going to change, but not too much. I can even remember when they first came in and said, there's going to be no layoffs. It's going to be fine. And I was young enough to where, during the layoff, I thought, of course, I'm going to get laid off. There's people that have been here for like 20 years that are 10 times better than me. So it didn't really affect me that much in this, other than I didn't want to get laid off really. But it wasn't that big a deal. And then they kind of handpicked who was going to come back and built it, which I was invited back. It was just a matter of, and this is a huge lesson to people in their careers. At that level, I was pretty cocky at that time. I was like, oh, well, you're only offering me 10 months, contract. And DreamWorks is offering me 3 pictures. And yeah, that was a huge mistake. I should have gone back to Disney just because it was kind of a family thing. I knew all the guys there, and it was, and I liked their tools. I liked working with their tools, and going to DreamWorks was like stepping back probably 15 years. Their tools are really antiquated, and they're much more of a technically based art group, meaning they're much more technical. Right. And you have to know all these things. So I'm constantly going to, these tech art guys going, hey, I can't get this to work. And they're just getting aggravated with me, and I'm getting aggravated. So I only stayed there for one picture. I finished one picture, and I'm probably the only person ever to go in and say, hey, I don't want to work here anymore. I don't want to finish my contract. How bad is that? Like I didn't want to burn a bridge, and I didn't want to, and they're like, oh, it's okay. Like if you didn't feel like this was the right fit or whatever. And so I left them in 2008, I think. Okay.
So just let me geek out for a moment. So you, John Lasseter was in a room with you talking. I know that sounded like.
Oh yeah. I was one of the few people that you just walked up and shook his hand and talked to him. I got a picture somewhere of me. It was at it was at one of the famous animators' birthday parties, and for some reason my brain he was the last of the 9 old men that passed away.
What?
Yeah, who was that? I don't know why.
Man, I'm not gonna be able to help you there.
Wait.
But
I have a picture of me with him.
Okay.
And John Lasseter is standing right behind me. And it's like the most epic picture ever.
Right. Well, if you can find it, please, and you're okay with it, I'd love to post it in the description after we archive this. That's so cool.
But yeah, it's probably on my Facebook somewhere. Let's see.
Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay, so you're saying you moved on to DreamWorks. It was me,
Ollie Johnson, and then John Lasseter is behind us.
Yeah. Unreal. Oh, did you find it?
No, I'm looking on my.
Okay, gotcha. So it's interesting that you say that DreamWorks tools were antiquated, because we had a guest speaker come when I was in college from DreamWorks. He was part of their modeling team, and he opened up one of their scenes for How to Train Your Dragon, and it's all NURBS modeling. And even back then it was like 2009, and I'm like, wait,
yeah,
NURBS? Man.
No, yeah, they were. That was when I was there, they were still modeling NURBS, and I don't. So from what I understood, I could be wrong, but. Because I worked even at Epic, I worked with a couple guys from DreamWorks when I was there. Okay. And we had talked about this, and they were saying that they were one of the very original CG guys. Like they built the first engines to render. Right. And they never really changed them. They just kept adding on to them. Okay. They never wiped the slate clean and started it again. Yeah. They just kept Frankensteining this old. Renderer and process to model and to animate, and it was just this weird, and that's what it felt like to me as a writer. I'd get to the end of the process and just be like, "What is this? Is crazy." And their methods are pretty, they want to render every blade of grass that's in a, outdoor scene, that kind of thing. They don't, they don't believe in like, hey, you can kind of taper it off here and no one will know. And they're like, nope, we're going to render everything. The clouds in Madagascar 2 are actually volumetric. I'm talking about the clouds behind the character's head in the sky.
Could easily be matte painted or whatever.
Frame to render. So,
oh my word.
So they're a little different in that respect.
Do you have any memories of render time for stuff like that?
I remember those clouds. They were like 16 hours a frame. Yeah.
That's nuts.
It's easy when you own one of the biggest computer, render farms in the world.
Yeah, true.
So they just you send it off to that thing and render in buckets like Blender does now. So we didn't have too much of a problem rendering it, but it still stinks.
Oh, by the way, so we had someone in the chat say Ollie Johnston. Is that the guy?
Ollie Johnston, yeah.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. I'm 90%. Yeah. It was. I know it was Ollie. Let's see if I can find this picture.
That is so incredible, dude. So speaking of the tools, is there anything what's been the evolution in the time you've talked about from being on Animation Master with Dave to getting to, we've talked about DreamWorks antiquated tools, but what did they use at Disney? Was it all proprietary?
They use, it was all off the shelf when I got there. It was Maya. My roommate had been there forever. He was on Aladdin. He had animated the carpet in Aladdin, and he was saying that back then they were still using Maya alias wavefront stuff. Yeah. But he said it was so back then that they had to do stuff in Maya and then write down the vertex, where things were in space, and then type them back into another computer and render it. And I'm just like, oh man, that's I think I'm old. These guys come from a whole different era of CG, right?
The carpet was CG? I must have forgot that.
Yeah, the carpet was CG. Yeah, it sure was. There was actually a lot of CG stuff in there.
I got to go back and watch that. That's amazing. Yeah. Okay.
So that was Darren Kiner. That was
he's the one who did that.
He's an old time Disney guy, and he knew everyone. He's like, that's so and so. He's famous because I knew I'd heard these names, but I've never seen the faces. So we'd walk down the hall and he'd point out on a daily basis 3 guys that I'm just like, oh my god, that's
right. I get such a kick out of that. Again, it feels so small. The people that you end up knowing, and that guy knew literally everyone, and you treat it like no big deal, oh yeah, John Lasseter was talking to us, but me, I'm freaking out.
It was a big deal even then. I would see Ed Catmull all the time, just walk by and think, I just used Catmull ROM, shading, and there he is right there. It's Ed Catmull,
right? And he also did the subdivision that every program uses, right?
Sub-Ds, the main sub-Ds that everybody uses. Yeah, I don't know what. I mean, he's the godfather of computer graphics, right? So I don't know. His hand has been in everything,
right? And anybody watching, so when you use a subsurf modifier in Blender, that technology behind that originated with Ed Catmull, who he's talking about.
Yeah, that dude. And what's really weird is all that stuff came out of what was it, University of Utah? He was Utah. It was Utah. They led the field in computer graphics.
Because John Lasseter started there too, didn't he?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think Lasseter was a traditional animator that came from Cal Arts or something.
Yeah, you're right. I thought there was a school where he and Catmull ended up together and they started pushing computer graphics forward. But I think history might be wrong. That might have happened
at Pixar at Apple when Apple owned it.
That's right. Okay.
So I don't know the whole story. Somebody should write a book, right?
Yeah, totally. Sorry, I got distracted.
I'm guessing too. I just know that Utah had all the computer graphic stuff, and then and Catmull kind of led that whole program as a, I'm guessing he's a doctor now, but.
Yeah, true.
So yeah.
Oh my. Okay, so anyway, I distracted you. So you got to DreamWorks Antiquated. What happened from there in your career?
What happened? I'm sorry, I'm still looking for this.
That picture.
After Disney?
After DreamWorks.
I took a small break. I was going to try to come back here.
Okay.
And then, ironically, when I was here, I wasn't here long at all. and I got a call from my art director from Disney, Rob Ruppel. He's a pretty famous guy too. And he had left Disney or been part of the cut. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But he ended up going to Naughty Dog. And I'd never even heard of Naughty Dog, but he calls me and is like, or he has a recruiter call me and is like, hey, would you like to work in games? And I was like, yeah, I've always wanted to work on a video game. So they brought me into Naughty Dog as a cinematic lighting artist.
Right.
I ended up doing, it was Uncharted 2. Again, Uncharted 1 was successful, but not like Uncharted 2 was.
Okay.
So I stepped into this role, again, just kind of luck. I just, that thing ended up winning like 100 Game of the Year awards or something crazy. But, I just sat down and started lighting all their cinematics, which I did like 80% of their damn cinematics.
Are you serious?
Yeah, a lot of it. And then at the very end, we hired a guy, Eric Tablata, to come in and help out. And this is, again, the small industry world where Eric, because I didn't know if I wanted to work in games or film. So I was at Naughty Dog for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
And these guys were doing, they were doing Green Lantern at Sony.
Okay.
And I was like, I'm a Green Lantern fan. So when I work on that film.
Yeah.
And so I went over to Sony, and Eric Tablata was there. He sat like right down the hall from me. I was like, what are you doing here? And then what was strange about that, again, this whole small world thing, is when I was out at the Culver studio across the street at the Culver studio. Yeah. They filmed like Gone with the Wind and stuff like that. So we were the runoff of the main studio, just in placement. They just placed us out there. I actually liked it because it was really quiet.
Yeah.
But when I walked in the main studio and walked down like the lighting aisle, it was the same 20 guys I worked with at Disney, like one after another, where I'm just like, what are you guys doing here? Right. It's so strange. But that's happened to me a couple times now, where I've just been in a studio and gone, it's the same crew. Yeah. It's the same bunch of guys.
Unbelievable. That's so cool. I love that about the industry. That's so fun.
Yeah, that's kind of comforting though, that you think, hey, it's, the same guys. I know since then, like a guy, Quentin, I've worked with at several studios now, he wanted to move to Colorado. And this is kind of those happy stories of, he talked about it all the time. Like, I want to live in the mountains of Colorado. I'm just going to retire and move there somehow. And I don't know what I'm going to do for a living. So he just moved there and ended up getting a job with, it's a game company. They're doing, I'm so bad with this.
Remember the name of it?
Life is Strange. Life is Strange. Right. And it's a really cool game. It's like very cinematic. Yeah. I think that's called Life is Strange.
Right.
So he kind of just fell into that when it was like right near where he was living, and he's like an art director there now. And I thought, man, cool how if you just kind of let things go, and that's kind of how I feel about Asheville. I was just like, the hell with it. I'm coming to Asheville whether no matter what. Yeah. And I ended up still being employed somehow.
With a pretty great job, it sounds like. Epic Game.
Pretty good. Yeah, it's still pretty production-y, which I'd like to get out of.
Okay, right.
I was hoping the marketing would be, a little less, but it's pretty hectic.
So something that I want to ask you, you keep mentioning, like it was luck. I happened to be in the right place at the right time. Uncharted 2 went on to be huge, just happened to be there as part of it. Like anytime I've met like a really established high profile artist professionally, like you, there's this element of humility. Now, if you can put that aside for a moment and think about, like, how did you get these jobs? Was it, I think you're a very personable, very kind, like friendly type. So that had to be good for you professionally. You have to have good skills.
Like, a big deal is like just being cool, being a nice guy that like people can, there's a lot of super talented jerks out there, right? And you look at the reel and you're going, this guy's amazing. We have to hire him. And they're there for 6 months and everybody's like, you got to get rid of this guy. He's just driving everybody crazy. That happens more often than you think.
Really?
But
okay.
Again, that group of guys that I see all the time, those same guys at Sony and Disney are all dudes that you'd be like, hey, let's go have a beer or
right.
They're just normal they treat people well. Like, I don't know, it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's just being nice and
Nice, dude.
and I think that's, again, that when Rob sees me, or when Rob's thinking of, hey, who do I want to work with? The guy that I used to do shots with in the sweat box at Disney, or some jerko that I could barely stand,
Yeah.
He's going to want to like hang out with me all day and work on Uncharted.
Right. Okay.
It just kind of makes sense, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely. So once you, let's see, it looks like my stream. Do you still see my stream?
I see you frozen.
Yeah. Okay. That's what really nice, weird face. Let me make sure that we're still streaming. Okay. I think we're still good. Sorry. I just want to make sure we didn't lose the stream. I'll keep going on. Crap. Forgot my question. Oh yeah. So once you get to like the higher kind of echelon, like your Disneys and your Sonys and your DreamWorks, because up until that point, I would say that your portfolio speaks louder than anything else. And I don't, maybe I haven't really talked to many people about getting a job. Like your personality is important, but once you get to that higher echelon, is it more about personality because the skills are pretty much understood? You've had this experience. Maybe. Your quality is so
I don't know. Like I've never sat in one of those rooms where they're picking a person, but I do remember Wallace Colvert, which is he's an amazing lighting artist from Disney. Worked there for his entire career, or most of his career. And he was in an interview. He was in one of my interviews, and he was a little more blunt. Where it was in my Disney interview, actually.
Okay.
That we make great effort not to hire a-holes, and said this in my face where I was just like, okay, but this was pretty far along. Like I think he was just making darn sure that like I was somebody that would fit in with their culture and just be a good person,
Right.
So I think there's a lot of talented people out there.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything super special about me or half those other guys other than, we're hardworking, we're really into what we do, in the obsession range. We really obsess over our stuff and want it to be right beyond what the company wants. We want to be perfect. I want my images to be the best they possibly can. So they look for those kind of things, and they look for people who are cool guys, just nice and not super jerky. And but yeah, right. I do. Yeah, almost every day. Well, I first got into it at Naughty Dog of all places. So Naughty Dog has this. They have a team of programmers there that are super high end. They're like they're really Sony employees, I think, more than they are Naughty Dog employees, because they don't really work on our games as much as they work on. I mean, let's put it this way: I've never seen one of those guys' desks because they work at a side of the office that my pass never accessed. And when we moved from one building to another at Naughty Dog, Sony came out with like binoculars to see if you could see from other buildings inside the ice room. So whatever they're working on is like super dang top secret. I don't know what the heck it is, but so these guys are really high up. As a matter of fact, I made a joke one time because we're of course working on Uncharted 2 and we're working on a PS3, and I was like, because we're laughing and joking with the ice guys, and I'm like, hey, what's the PlayStation 4 like? And they got dead serious, and we're like, we can't talk about that. I'm like, oh, do you guys really have it? I was just joking, I really have a score back there, but they're just like, no, we can't discuss these things. Right. So, but I met one of the guys that we all had our kind of ice buddy, somebody that we helped out or talked to often. And mine was this guy named, this is my phone, named Mort Mickelson. Let me kill this thing. I don't know. I didn't see that part of it. I just saw the asset. He would send me something, and it was always a Blender. And so I had to work with, and this is before Blender 2.5. So it was at the time I was really interested in it because it's open source and I'm a big fan. And coming from film, we use Linux for almost everything. We had talked about that. Like,
Yeah.
Linux is the operating system for animated feature film. It just is. Everybody from Disney, Pixar, everybody, those are all Linux houses. Like, your workstation is Linux. Everything that renders it is Linux. So the more,
do you have any idea why that is? Why that is?
I have no idea. I don't know.
So interesting. Okay. Anyway.
I don't know. They were really stable machines, and it's probably because you're using CG, which is a very unstable thing.
Oh yeah.
People complain about Blender being unstable. Man, they have no idea what unstable is. Back in the day, hell, it was amazing you could do any of that. So yeah, would it crash several times a day? Hell yeah, it would. Like that you're pushing the edge of what technology could do,
Wow, yeah, it's a good perspective.
Blender, everything, all this new software is incredibly stable.
Right. And,
so Mort Mikkelsen, he's the guy that, when we see Mick T space, MIKKT space, which is what Blender uses to smooth, and it's what Unreal Engine uses to smooth. It's what do you call it? Grand shading, smoothing thing.
Right.
That's part of like that algorithm is this guy's algorithm.
Oh my gosh.
I didn't even know that until like I worked for Epic and was like, what is this Mick T space? And it's like Mikkelsen. And I was like, I know a guy named Mick. Oh, it's the same guy. It's crazy.
What?
So,
okay.
Yeah. So that's that guy. He actually works for Unity now.
Okay.
So I'm sure he works a lot. I imagine he does a lot of integrating Blender stuff with, because he was strictly Blender. That's all he worked with.
Right.
So he's the one that kind of planted that seed and showed me, or kept sending me these Blender files that I would usually, my first goal was to try to get him out of Blender to something else so I could work with him.
Uh-huh.
But once 2.5 came out, the new interface, and I opened it up and I'm like, hey, this is way usable,
Right.
like not what it was. I mean, what it was fine. I just thought that it felt like they had stolen all the best stuff from the other CG packages and put it together in the open source. And I'm like, this is what open source is all about.
Right.
And the more I played with it, the more I was like, dude, this thing is cool. And then I worked at Sony for a while, worked with Arnold, the renderer Arnold, which was by far my favorite renderer, the first like unbiased renderer I've worked with. Okay. And so when Cycles came out, I was totally sold. I was just like, this works just like Arnold. And that's probably when I really was like, okay, I'm going to sit down and learn Blender halfway decently.
Right. Holy smokes.
And then I had to teach it. I had to teach it at a little community college. And that's when I really learned it, because it was like, okay, I can get something done in Blender. But, I taught intro to animation, I think, and then modeling 2, and all of it in Blender. And boy, my level of, I could get by in Blender to the point where like I can do anything in Blender almost.
Oh my
it feels
goodness.
like anyway.
Wow. Okay.
So in my daily work, like there's several Blender guys at Epic. I'm not the only person.
Really? Okay.
In fact, we just hired a guy a few months ago that from ILM, and he's a huge Blender dude. So, and he did all the destruction in the Fortnite trailer, the real cinematic one where they go into Dirt Burger and the monster bashes through the wall and destroying everything. All that destruction, all done in Blender by that guy from ILM. So it's definitely, it has its following, So yeah, man, it's and it's cool. That's what's cool about working for a game company is they just don't care what you use. He was saying that about ILM. He's like, ILM wouldn't let me use this stuff because they have their very strict, pipeline, and you don't want to break something. Whereas for us, it's like if it comes out and it makes a good FBX, no one really cares.
Okay. Okay.
So I used Blender on Call of Duty. I used it on. I know Mort used it on all kinds of Naughty Dog stuff, but
holy smokes.
I used it on Battlefield 4.
Right.
Battlefield 4, and I've used it on Paragon, not production stuff, all the production marketing stuff. So marketing stuff and then Fortnite. But I use it almost every day on this stuff because I'll export something because we'll pose things, and you're still working with a video game rig, which is not quite as robust.
Right.
So I'll export it and then clean it up in Blender, re-export that as an FBX, and then put it back in the engine, throw the materials back on them, and it works good. Hey, you froze again.
I did. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Man, we might try and wrap it up then. I just don't want to have to keep restarting. But there was one question that I did want you to answer that I thought was a good one. So this is from Peter, and he said, what about people with a passion, with the passion, but who might not have the technical background that others have? Like, what is some encouragement or advice to them trying to, I assume, get a job, like turn it into a career maybe?
I don't have any technical background. I think it's, and again, my mother is a traditional artist. She has her own studio and stuff, and she doesn't believe in skill as a talent. She doesn't believe in talent. She believes in skill that you've built over time. And that after working in art for so long, I'm kind of the same way. I think that when you see somebody draw something, it's not necessarily that fantastic.
Yeah.
But if that person draws every day, like for a year, they become, quite a bit better.
Right.
And to the point where, I had another guy at Naughty Dog, they were grooming to be an art director. And he had done this thing where he wanted to become a concept artist within like a year or something. And he just sat down and like made a schedule for himself and drew constantly and painted and studied. And the next thing you know, that guy was crazy good. And it had nothing to do with it. He was born talented. He just worked his butt off and made it happen. And I think the majority of people that really works for is the people that are passionate about what they do. They're passionate about the process. Because we all I want to be able to draw like that guy, right? But I'm not that passionate about the process of sitting down and drawing every day.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason, CG, I am. I'll sit and make things or play with different plugins, or there's something about computer graphics that I kind of gravitate to and just obsess over. And I think that's one of the things that it's not that I'm talented. I've become skilled over the years.
Right.
So I would never look at it and say, well, I'm not really that technical. It's like, well, if you're passionate about it, if you really want to do it, you will become technical. You'll build the talent that you need.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. William in the chat said solid advice. I completely agree with that. I love that idea that she doesn't believe in talent, because the way that's broken down, like I completely agree with it.
She used to tell me that as a child because I would draw and be like, well, I'm not talented. And she'd be like, that's a misconception. That there is no talent. You sit down and draw every day and you will be as good as I am. And she was absolutely right.
Wow. Good grief. That is gold. Holy smokes. Well, great. Well, I think that's a good place maybe to wrap it up then. It's a few minutes early, but I don't know about these technical issues. So just to wrap it up, I hope you maybe gathered, I don't know if I explained it well, but talking to Tom, seeing the level of career that he's had, that's a big passion of ours at CG Cookie, to train people to be successful. And he's full of advice that you don't really get by clicking buttons in Blender. So we want to pass on that passion of working in the industry and building up that quality of skill. So that's kind of, my motivation for having Tom up. I should have stopped or said that at the beginning. But thank you so much, Tom, for being here. I hope we get to do more of these, because it's pretty clear that you got all kinds of insight into things that I'd love to pick your brain about. Yeah. Maybe one day we'll sit down and show you what exactly I do in Blender and go through that process. It's pretty fun. I love Blender. It's such a cool piece of software. Well, everyone here watching agrees with that. Trust me. Awesome. So thank you, Tom. You have a good one, and we will sign off with that. Everybody else, have a good rest of your day. All right, Kent.